Hi, and thanks for taking a few minutes to watch today's Connect video. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. The theme for our church this year is Kingdom Builders. We're working on not just building our church, but building the kingdom of God. One of the ways we're doing that is through a church plant this year in Catalyst Community Church. In just over a month, they have their public launch here it'll be in Marana, Arizona, where they're meeting, Mountain View High School. So that's one of the ways we're trying to expand the kingdom, not just our church. My name is Steve Van Kley. I'm the lead pastor here at Canyon del Oro Bible Church. We're here in Oro Valley, Arizona, suburb just to the north of Tucson. And my video today, what we're going to do is talk about good enemies. Good enemies. Now, as you know, we live in a very divided culture. 2026 in the United States is a time of deep and very intense division. And now these divisions typically manifest in the political realm. But since everything is politics, we see it in all areas of life. One of the areas that we see some overflow in this is there is a rising and increasing anti-Christian sentiment in segments of our country. As Christians in the United States, we have enemies in our own nation. So I want to hit on three things on this. And the first thing I want to talk about is your perspective about this. Let's talk about perspective. Let's make sure we understand what's going on, but see it in perspective. We tend to kind of hyper-focus just on what happens in the United States, but we need to see what happens around the world too with this, okay? So first of all, even with the recent rise in anti-Christian sentiment in our nation, the United States remains one of the safer nations in the world to be a Christian and to freely worship as a Christian. Here's a chart that shows the 10 most dangerous nations to be a Christian in the year 2026. North Korea is the most dangerous nation to be a Christian, and it has been the most dangerous. It's been on number one on this list for many years. Now, here's another way to look at this. Here's a world map which shows the 25 most violent nations for Christians in 2026. It's important to note that the United States is not in the top 25 list yet. Not yet, in regard to this list, okay? But there has been. So that's some good perspective for us. Let's see this in perspective. But there has been a significant shift in our culture over the past 10 to 15 years at least, maybe 20 years, but we felt it more in the last 10, right? In February of this year, City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, the worship services there were disrupted by protesters with very little protection or intervention from law enforcement. Family Research Council puts out numerous studies and reports, does a lot of work, but they put out a report on the hostility against American churches. This is in 2024, a couple years ago. Now here's a map from that report showing the number of hostile incidents against Christian churches in America since 2018. So you can really see the increase here, right? It ramping up in the last few years. In addition, here's I think one of the reasons. Islamic immigrants, both legal and illegal, over the past number of years, have contributed to this in a sense. Not only anti-Christian, but very anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, of course, right? But I also want to listen, these recent immigrants is not the primary issue. This runs much deeper throughout our entire nation, the nation's soul, if you will, with this. So that, I hope, gives you some perspective to understand what's happening, but also see it in the bigger picture, the world view. Second thing I want to talk about is your challenge. Your challenge as a Christian, your challenge in this. So here's the challenge. As Christians, one of the great values that we try to emulate, the value that Jesus taught and displayed and gave us the ideal model to emulate. The challenge here, we need to love others. Not just love other Christians, but love all people. No matter what. Jesus does not call us to simply love those who are nice to us or those who mostly agree with our values and life philosophy and so on. Jesus calls us to, in fact, what? Love our enemies. In the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, he says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.'" That was standard for his day, right? "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that," here's the purpose, "so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven." Now, this was easier to do when I was growing up, when the culture was more Christianized, if you will, than it is now. Enemies of Christianity when I was growing up were very few, and they were culturally silenced by the quote-unquote Christian culture. Well, that's not true anymore today, is it? So how do you love others when others want to hurt you, when others want to harm you or limit your ability to worship freely, when others think you and believe that what you believe, you are the problem? That is our challenge as Christians, right? How do we love our culture, love everyone, even those who want harm against us or want to limit our freedoms? Third thing, your acceptance. Your acceptance. Now, here's what I mean for acceptance. You need to accept that it's okay to have enemies. In fact, having enemies reveals the reality of your faith. Our beliefs about Jesus, about human nature, sin, good and evil, spiritual realities that the Bible teaches about, ethics and morals, all of these are truths which the Bible addresses. It's our belief in Jesus as God, God incarnate, God in the flesh, right? God, in that Jesus is the only way, faith in Christ, the only way to salvation. It's our conviction of these biblical truths which the unbelieving culture rejects, and some of these very beliefs are the stated reasons for their hatred of us. But Jesus told us, he told his followers in John 15, he said, "If the world hates you, know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." And so this should not be a shock to us. In fact, the Christian culture that we had for many years in our nation, that is kind of the unicorn in history. What we're starting to experience now is normal in world cultures. And I believe the true source, though, of the hatred of us is spiritual. The spiritual realities and the spiritual battles the Bible teaches is behind all the things we see in the physical and material world. Paul in Ephesians 6 puts it like this: "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." So this is a spiritual battle. Now, you don't want to have enemies because you are intentionally offensive in spirit and in relational dynamics, or because you're caustic and abrasive, or because you are unfeeling or unloving. We don't want to be rude and kind of be jerks or be spiritually arrogant and have that the reason that people are against us. Having enemies because of the truths that we believe in, that we stand for, that in fact is okay if we have enemies because of those things. It's kind of like if someone rejects us because of the gospel, okay, I'm not going to change the gospel to make a friend, right? The gospel is the truth. And if you look at me as an enemy because of the gospel, then that's on you. I mean, they're really hating what God has said, what Christ has done. Now, of course, we don't want to have enemies, but our desire, our passion for what is right, for what is true, must override our passion and our desire to get along and have friends. In my dissertation a few years ago, my topic on the dissertation was church leadership, and I argued for 3 different traits or practices, if you will, but traits for church leaders. And one of those traits was courage. And what I meant by courage was the courage to stand for what is right, even when there are pressures against you standing for what is right. In fact, there are many people in churches who want what is comfortable, not necessarily what is right. They want what's familiar, not necessarily what is best for the church's Christ-given mission to make disciples, go and make disciples of all nations, right? This is why it's important we understand Sometimes there's quote-unquote good enemies. Or maybe this is a clear way to state it. Enemies for the right reasons. So we must love others, even our enemies. But don't compromise the truth. Don't compromise your convictions in order to get along with those who reject the truth. Love does not mean that you agree with everyone or you accept and approve anything and everything of what others do and believe. Truth does divide. God and evil do exist, and they will not get along. But we still have a call to love well, to commit ourselves to God's truth, and in fact to be okay with having enemies because of our conviction and our belief in truth. Here's the articles, a list of the articles I used to prep for this video, and I would encourage you to dig a little bit if you want and look at any or all of these. But those are the things I looked at to try and get my mind around this topic. I have a programming update for you. So I will not have a video next week. And the reason is we have the church association we're a part of. We have our annual leadership retreat for our region is next week. It's Sunday night, July 19th through Tuesday night, July 11th. And it's up in Phoenix. So I'll be in meetings on Tuesday. I won't be able to put together this video. I'll be up there with others from our church staff. So the next video will be coming out on Tuesday, July 28th. But thanks for taking a few minutes to connect with me here today. I hope you can join us this coming Sunday. We continue our current sermon series, Retro Gospel. It's a walk through Paul's letter to the churches in southern Galatia, the letter of Galatians in our New Testament. We're walking through that. This coming Sunday is sermon number 11 of 14. We're starting chapter 5. There's 6 chapters total in Galatians, starting chapter 5. So we're getting to the end of this study. Service times here at the church, 9:15 or 11 o'clock. And we'd love for you to join us here in person. But if you can't, I know some of you watching this video are out of town, even out of state. Or if you can't be here, maybe you work on Sunday mornings, we'd love for you to join us via the live stream. To check out our live stream, you can go on Sunday morning to our website, cdobible.org. There's a link there on Sunday mornings. You can click on that, or just go straight to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search out Canyon del Oro Bible Church, click on our logo. I want to ask you to subscribe, and then you'll be able to join us and worship via the live stream. Hey, thanks again for watching. I pray you have a great week this week, and I do pray that you're a blessing to everyone that you meet. Bye-bye.